in the back?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
So even if.
Who are we asking?
Huh?
Who are we? Okay.
Please. Even if the income tax or property taxes weren't increased in the past 7 to 10 years, in Laramie County alone, and I can't speak for any other counties, but the property values have more than doubled in many neighborhoods in the 7 to 10 years. So even if we didn't increase the levy amount or how much you're getting taxed on that fair market value, we've more than doubled the intake in Laramie County just by property values going up so high in the last 10 years. So I can't see how they can't afford, how they're still coming up with a shortfall.
Like I said, Laramie County can probably absorb $5 million. I'm not worried about, it would be tough, there would probably be some reduction in services. Where it really impacts people is the town of Alvin, the town of Pine Bluffs, Niobrara County, Uinta County, these counties that haven't seen that saw, a negative in their property values over the last 10 years. And it affects everybody. It's a statewide thing, and that's why I say it should be a much more surgical process and a surgical kind of approach to addressing the issue, because yeah, I'll agree, we can figure out how to do that here in Laramie County, but what are you gonna tell the town of Alvin? What are you gonna tell Lusk, where I know the county commissioners in Niobrara County sweep their own stairs, clean their own offices, do all those things, because they don't have revenue to do any of that. That's my, answer to that, and sure, I can figure it out, but if you have ideas to help those smaller communities, I'm happy to hear those too, and I'm sure they are.
Thank you. If I could, I have one more question for you guys over there.
Sure.
Would these property tax cuts be for qualifying residents only, or would it be across the board?
The way the ballot initiative is written, you have to have owned your home for a year and lived in it for at least 6 months in the previous year, in that year, in order to apply for it. So in order for you to qualify for this tax initiative, the home you're in now, if you owned it last year, 12 months, and you lived in it as your primary residence for 6 months, then you qualify. The people in Jackson don't kind of fall into that category. There's about 2,700 of them up there that do. There's majority of them are snowbirds that have 5 houses in 15 countries and other places all over the place. So they're the revenue stream up there, they live off of 99% of their residential property tax. 99%. So this is gonna be a big cut for them. But we don't have any problem up there. They're signing petitions faster than they can get it, which is okay. But that's gonna affect the 27 or so hundred that, that'll actually qualify for the cut, for the exemption. The others are not gonna qualify, so their revenue stream is not gonna be altered that much. They'll still have plenty to go, and they acknowledge that.
Well, just like federal income tax, I think that it should be across the board in every revenue. So putting in these qualifying restrictions like owner occupied for a certain amount of months per year.
Can you use the microphone, please?
Sorry about that. But I believe that it should be across the board.
We're nonpartisan because everybody's got to live in a home. If people don't have a place to live, they're not gonna have a place to work either. It doesn't matter. The people that have worked and saved and played by the rules, paid their homes off and so forth, and can't pay their government rent, caught our attention rather rapidly on the campaign trail. Weaponizing the tax code to pick winners and losers didn't work out for us, because the wealthy in this country pay 97% of the income taxes, of the taxes in this country. We have a vibrant economy because the wealthy provided 10% of the revenue comes from the middle class, and less than 1% comes from the bottom class, and you can look that up in IRS records. The National Tax Association publishes the same numbers. We don't pick winners and losers. Americans are Americans. We don't punish prosperity. Everybody, whether you inherited your money or you earned it in Wall Street or however you got your money, this is America. This is not a third world country. And so we shied away from that as a matter of just being Americans. And the other thing is we're limited to one subject on a ballot initiative. We couldn't dive into starting to carve out special niches for genders and age. You gotta live in your house 65 years, and you gotta be 65 years old. You can't have more than $15 in the bank. We skipped past that. We just went to a straight 50%, straight across the board. And that was how we arrived at it. The insurance policies and everything else you have, where your car is, they all pick 6 months. Where do you live predominantly most of the year? That's how they write your insurance policies. That's how the IRS looks at how you tax things. And so we picked 6 months from off of the national codes, what's standard practice in the United States. All the numbers we gave you, we didn't make those up. Those all come from the governor's budget books. They come from the Wyoming Taxpayers Association. They come from the Treasurer's Report, Department of Revenue, Legislative Service Office, Revenue Division, that's a big mouthful. And we looked at the county budgets as well. And we certainly didn't want to cripple anybody, but we did. The government's not what's hurting in this state, it's the people. The Constitution was written to restrict government. It was not written to restrict people. The legislators that go down there and take the oath of office say, I'm going to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And they are there to restrict government. They're not there to enable government to abusive tax policies and things. And you say, what are you going to do with another $140 million? If this is going to be a car wreck for this state, then maybe we do need a new legislature because we mismanaged our money completely. If a state with a $28 billion savings account is going to be car wrecked by $140 million.
More questions? Yep. Thanks. All right, got another question here? Forward.
So for you gentlemen, so I hear what your best case scenario is, but what is the worst case scenario if yours goes through?
The worst case scenario for us is if that the Supreme Court rules on this, it's not gonna be a grenade in the tent, it's gonna be a nuclear bomb. It's gonna be horrible because it's not that we're out of money, it's just that we've industrial, commercial business, agriculture and everything is a large chunk of where we get our revenues. Oil, gas, and coal, we can live off of that, but they're gonna have to take a look at priorities. I don't have a worst case scenario unless, what's the worst case scenario? You hear a lot of this, okay, we're gonna lose oil and gas. And then so when you're in need of the property taxes in order to survive, well, if people don't have jobs, how are they gonna pay taxes? So we went down some goofy avenues trying to worst case scenario this, and we couldn't find one.
Cool. You have another one, Phil? Yeah.
So my thought on the worst case scenario is Governor mentioned those small towns. If those do shut down, your concern is keeping people in their houses. And as you mentioned, if people don't have jobs, then they can't do anything else. But if those towns shut down, to me, that's people losing jobs and people losing houses. So I'm not sure how the deduction of it will make it. I get your idea is that the government will take their savings account and say, hey, here's money. But if they don't, to me, I see this as the worst case scenarios. There's a lot of towns that are shut down that are small. I mean, I'm raised in Wyoming, I've lived in Rock River, I lived in Wamsutter. I've lived in all these small towns. And yeah, so my thought is I don't want to see these little towns shut down because then we're back to square one where you said the number one thing is to make sure people have homes. So how do we prevent those ones to make sure that they don't lose their jobs and lose their homes? We have a presumption from what I understand, but it doesn't sound like it's a guarantee.
Well, when you're talking about losing a job, there's only one government employee in Rock River, right? Just one. So you're talking about that single individual losing their job relative to the other 200 some odd people.
Well, you gotta figure schools too. If they don't have the funding
No,
for
I
schools,
got it.
teachers
I
and
got
everyone
it.
else is down too.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm trying, this is one of those things that that, you know, when we looked at this, and we looked at the numbers, we looked at what keeps getting put into savings, and again, we're all about that. But there comes a time to say, okay, you know, when enough is enough, with it. And, that's, you know, our basis for this. We're not up here to argue tax policy or anything like that. This is one of those things, just based on all the folks with whom we've spoken over the last, couple of years, that are getting kicked out of our houses, or are just barely getting by. It's like, look, we've got to do something, we've got to ignite the conversation, and that's exactly what this initiative's been doing.
Got that one over here?
We'll go to you gentlemen as well for just a second. So one of the slides up there, I think it was 3,000 tax liens
3400.
statewide. What's that dollar amount?
No idea,
Yeah.
no idea. That comes off the sheriff.net. It was brought to us. Somebody else said, did you know how much that was? And we don't even know.
You're gonna cut 140 million, right?
Right.
With the taxes? What does it take? I guess I'm just curious as to what it would take to pay off that bill, to put a program in place without cutting all those taxes, taking the small communities down, those kinds of things, to help that 3,000 people. We're talking, less than 0.5% of the population of Wyoming, right? 580,000 versus 3,400. So, I mean, have you guys haven't considered that portion of it?
Well, no, I think, you know, those liens, you know, based on how they do it in the state, right? You can, 3 years out, you know, 15%, and you gotta pay it back, et cetera. So those numbers do change quite a bit. Some of those, that's the overall across the state, okay, based on it, right? So when it comes out actually bailing those people out, that's not what this is about, okay? Some of those, you know, we don't know the whole cause for all of those 3,400 links. I mean, we just don't. I mean, that's what it is across it. We put it up there because we do know that a significant portion of that, and again, these numbers change all the time, when we go to the sheriff's website, comes down to people who legitimately cannot pay their taxes because of whatever reason. Okay, we know there's other things in there included also.
Right, so you're saying there may be actually less that are in actual hardship?
Absolutely, it could be. That is the total. That's the total, and yeah, that's not to insinuate that all 34 are because of that, but what we found is that a majority of that is.
Last question, schools funded through 26, you said that 3 or 4 times. What's the plan after 26?
Well, that's not our job. That's one job.
No, you're the
Hey, I'm not an elected official here, right? Yeah.
Well, if I could, I could give you, I'll tell you how far the plan goes. The rainy day fund was established to operate government, not to save people. It's not gonna put a gallon of fuel in your car or a jar of peanut butter in your cabinet. We have a $5 billion budget year to year, and you go 5 into 28, well, that's slightly more than 5 years. And part of that budget is a $2.2 billion education fund. And if you cut the 45% of that as administration and construction out of it, you just saved another billion. So now you can put another that sixth year on there. So your education is required to be funded by the Constitution to the legislature. They are responsible for funding education. They are. That's a government responsibility. So you've got 6 years of educational reserves included in the budget reserves.
If we stop building schools, right?
Yeah, might as well. You know, I homeschooled 3 kids, so I know what it costs to.
So I have a couple things. First, of everyone that you say are on the verge of losing their homes or could lose their homes because of tax liens, how many have tried and or been denied the already in place programs that the state of Wyoming has to offer? And then also with your comment of just saying that we're funded through 2026, and then that's not your job, but if you're promoting this as a big tax cut and we have all this, shouldn't you be responsible then to figure out how you're going to make up that income for taxes, for schools, for that one person in Rock River that might lose their job? Is that not important?
Of course it's important. But I didn't see anybody here in the legislative session when they ran 21 tax bills and they ran their fiscal impact statements and did the research that we did. I didn't see anybody there. There's 3 people in that gallery. And we did do our homework, and $140 million is 1% of the state budget. It's not gonna be a train wreck. We're not talking about giving people money, we're not talking about taking away people's money. What we're talking about is, this money that we're talking about is in your wallet right now. We're talking about leaving the taxpayer with that money. And even if this ballot initiative goes through, your taxes are still gonna go up another 40 million bucks. We thought when we started this, we would be able to move taxes back 3 or 4 years, because we know the legislature is gonna have to wrestle with this. It's a very sophisticated, very tedious, intense process. And anybody that's a CPA will tell you that. If you look at the budget books and you look at all that, a lot of it's gonna take a lot of legislation to clean up. So we did look at that. We looked to see if we did have the reserves and if there was gonna be catastrophic. But even with the tax initiative on there, we're still on an incline that we can't get out of unless we put some kind of a cap or something else on there. And we've talked with, we have quite a few legislators on our side. I've got 2 CPAs, I've got former tax assessors that advise us and have been involved with us throughout this whole process. So we're not gonna take money away from children. We're not gonna give money to people that are losing their houses. We're not giving a dime to them. All we're trying to do is ease the burden. As the gentleman back there said, most people have had their taxes double. And so they can't afford it. I mean, they're living hand to mouth. A lot of people are. You know,
So how many of these people though, that first question, have tried or been denied with the program that the state of Wyoming has in place to help with tax lien relief?
he and I are the staff, and one other person in Thermopolis. And they don't even look at that because we can't affect their situation other than through this tax bill anyway. This wasn't about targeting individuals. This was about the whole state. When we started doing the ballot initiative, you look out there and there's, you're realtors, you know, there's 276,000 homeowners out there. 70% of those are owner occupied, give or take. And only, they'll be the ones that qualify for this initiative. So we looked at the largest umbrella that we could cast over the state of Wyoming. We couldn't do it with industrial, by cutting industrial taxes. We couldn't do it with agriculture, even though they're hurting too. All these other entities that we mentioned are all being overtaxed. All their taxes went up too. But we looked at business and we looked at commercial, and we said the largest umbrella we could throw for 540,000 people would be doing the residential property tax.
We got another one in the back here. Another question?
This question is for Lori Bergerheit. My name's Amy Bennett, and I'd like to know, what were the top concerns in Teton County?
And I was, excuse me, I was asked to speak to them about the constitutional amendment and to discuss the effects of the People's Initiative. So we had a lot of discussion about